Okay, so those cups. Throne World. Just finished playing it. Hopefully you've watched the videos so that you can see what the components are like in action, etc. At least some of them. Let's speak about them. Good old standard, counters, pretty decent quality. No problem there. Except that everybody shares the same counter mix for troops, which causes kind of a question of in the rules. Tim Jib's never great about being complete in their rules, but this set is actually really very good for them. This is probably the best I've seen of theirs, rules-wise, except maybe fast food franchise. Anyway, it's not clear what happens when you run out of pieces. Do you make more? That's what it would seem like, but I don't like doing that anyway. So I start putting artificial limits on the counter on the game play based on the counter mix, just like I did with Empires in the Middle Ages. Nice little player aids, good deal of information on them, special abilities listed. I find these useful. These guys, absolutely necessary. Just like they are in Axis and Allies, you need something to distribute the troops on. The map, when you get the map out and you get all the counters on it, I've already complained about this. It's hard to really visualize someone's empire, partially because of the scan counters, partially because of the ground troops and such not, the command posts especially, which the neutrals, I wish the neutrals never had them, because so many times I tried to flip a command post that wasn't the Baraltes, that was within their territory though, and I may have gotten away with it a couple of times. So yeah, there's a basic problem, I think, with the whole genre of an empire building space game, which I discussed in the last the idea that you should start far, far apart, and you should start with almost nothing, and grow, and then conflict. And most games that follow that pattern that I've seen, if they're 6 to 8 hour games, you spend most of that time in the growing phase, then there's a little bit of conflict, and then it's over. And this one kind of fits that. I think there's some mechanisms in place that might avoid that with the, sudden death situation. But we saw here it ended pretty quickly now. Maybe my players are dickier than real ones would be. I wouldn't put that past them, but I've played with groups where a significant number of the players are just as dicky as I am, so, I think that there are ways to get around that. I think that there are possible games that don't exist as far as I know, but that could sit in a more sustained campaign. Something that felt like Europa Universalis in space. And I would love that. I mean, it doesn't have to be that level of complexity. I just think that you could build a game without too many artificial constraints that has that situation. And the closest I've seen is actually Sword in the Stars, but to me that's always been a weaker Empires of the Middle Ages. Let me look at a couple of the notes I have here. Axis and Allies in space, yeah, I mean, it really is the combat at least. Now, there are some really subtle and interesting options in play, just in terms of, do you want to attack, do you want to move your command posts, what chits do you want to keep, do you want to get production up, or do you want, to get a one-time boost of income? Just a lot of options like that I think are very interesting. So I really think that the game would be very good in 3 or 4 people, maybe even 5 or 6. I think it would be a lot more interesting. It just doesn't play as well solitaire, and that's something I've told. Um, and the point in that is there's too much track and too little detail for a good solitaire game. It's also the visual issue. The two orange players pisses me off. I don't like orange. But again, there's an issue with not being able to see it. Now, so yeah, I think this is at a nice level. This is at the level that games like Civ used to fill, and Stellar Conquest, and a number of others. People who don't want to play a war game can often be convinced into something like this. Because of theme, because of a sort of apparent likeness. So we'd have no problem getting people together for Amoeba Wars, well, until the Euros came out. Or for something like this, or Junta. Even though they were fairly, long games by today's standards, that was seldom the argument. Now, Civ, that was too long. There was no question. People wanted things within that 6-hour limit at kind of a top. And I think this fits in that fairly well. Now, who knows with today? Maybe everybody wants 20-minute games. I can't tell you that. But this, for the gamers of my era who weren't hardcore, this would be an accessible game. I don't know what it counts as today. Let me think what else. Basic mechanisms. There's some really interesting stuff going on here. Outside the combat die rolls, which to me that's just a cop-out. I mean, when you go with the buckets of dice system, you're copping out completely. You're saying, I don't want to spend the effort designing something that's almost as good as buckets of dice in terms of results, but I'm willing to let my players' wrists pay the price for that. Little tricky stuff with the survey teams. They start out the game, they're kind of iffy at best, but they're the only way you get to scan on the first turn from the way the rules are written. But then, once you get into conflict, they're awesome. They can steal planets. And I didn't think about them as being valuable. So you definitely don't want to use them after that first move. I like the transportation elements of the game. I like the different effects of the units. Some being better on defense, some being better on attack, some being better for specific races. The drop troops with their special first shot. I like the splitting, the Empire phase off. I think that's kind of cute, so that once you get into the victory cycle of the game, everything becomes more condensed. So turns can go by without any production to indicate these long wars, but you could view it as like expanding and blowing up the view of the war. So you might be playing a century as a whole turn normally, but during the war period, turns might be 5-10 years long, or something along those lines. I'm not, I don't know what the scale is. They don't really specify. You can never be knocked out of the game. That's kind of annoying to me, actually. I mean, I guess you could leave, but yeah, it's not a very complex game the only thing I can really compare it to absolutely fairly is Stellar Conquest. It's a little lighter than Stellar. It's less bookkeeping, obviously. It's more open. I think there's a lot less, there's no chance for the surprising moves that I love in Stellar. On the other hand, I think this is going to play a lot more rapidly. There's more ability to interact with people. Stellar usually breaks down into, do I attack someone on turn 1 and try to wipe them out of the game and own 2 systems, or do I just build up my system ever. And basically, after that first attack, if that happens or doesn't happen, everybody who's left just grows for the remainder of the game. So yeah, compared to Stellar, I would say it's about equivalent. I have the same misgivings. It's going to hit the table very seldomly as a solitaire play game, actually for kind of similar reasons. The lack of player interaction. I want a lot of player interaction when I'm playing solo. I don't mind being on my own and building so much when I'm with other people. And we're going to follow this up with Time Agent, which is set in the same universe. Came out a few years beforehand and was so popular that they made Throne World on the same universe. I don't know if anything by Tim Jim was so popular. But I played Time Agent once and I liked it. This one, I think I would have liked it with other people. I don't know if I would have bought it after playing it, though. Time Agent I did buy after playing it. Of course, there was a lot of time in between. All right.